Fay Bolt, and I'm a strong supporter of our Constitution, and I thank the panel for the wisdom you have shared with us today. But I don't have quite the confidence you have in the everyday people, because I think the everyday people are not being given enough facts by the media. Our media is not diversified enough, and we do not get enough balance in facts that are presented to the community, so that often the community is brainwashed to think in a certain direction because they have not been exposed to other ideas. Excuse me, we're very fortunate to have you, but there are, it seems to me that our media sanitises or just censors many of the views that are presented day after day, week after week, till the peoples are sort of eroded with what they really do believe. And I think it is important that we have a strong, diversified media to inform the people.
Fay, don't go. Let me ask you this. May I ask you this? I think what you're saying is very true about the Wuhan or COVID-19 virus, or whatever it should be called. COVID-19 virus is the preferred name by the Beijing government, and the WHO has taken that over. But were you not surprised, delightfully surprised, by the reaction to the government's, I think, not only foolish, I thought it was a stupid decision, to publish the Brereton report before prosecutions were completed, and then to encourage the use of collective punishment against soldiers from Afghanistan. Were you not pleased with the reaction of the public to that? I think there was such a strong outrage among the public to what the government has done in relation to the Brereton report about Afghanistan.
I was very pleased, and I was very shocked about that being carried out the way it was and presented the way it was. So I was very thankful for it.
And wasn't it interesting that people, notwithstanding the way that we're usually encouraged to think one way, that the people did react so strongly?
Very pleased.
And I think that was shown, Michael, was it not in your programmes?
Well, it was. I think you and I, when we had the conversation Wednesday, a fortnight ago, would have been one of the first to sort of look at this critically and say, well, you know, and you and I have spoken a lot about it. I think the points Fay raises are very valid. You and I have spoken a lot about the issue of being innocent before proven guilty, the presumption of innocence. And sadly, in the media, I would say that presumption has by and large gone by the wayside. There seems to be an attitude that you can report on anything, and as long as you sort of splash the word allegedly around like it's going out of fashion, it's okay. And maybe legally it is these days, I don't know. But I mean, we've seen a lot of reputations destroyed. People from the artistic community, for example, some very high profile cases, who I don't think have had a job since. Their reputations, sport people, of course, as well, and now the SAS, reputations besmirched. And in the case of the SAS, it was just so foolish from so many of our political leadership, but many others in them. And you read some of the coverage, the adjectives that are being used, just verbs, appalling. Because now, and again, this was all completely foreseeable, you have the Taliban using it as propaganda. You have the Chinese government using it. There's a disgraceful episode today, using it as propaganda. The Russians, I think, are now using it as propaganda. I mean, anyone could have foreseen this. Maybe it's sacrilege for someone in the media like myself to say this, but I think there are some circumstances where the disinfecting power of daylight is actually best not shone in such a public way on sensitive stories. And as one of my listeners said, and I'm sure they were quite right in an email, you know, does anyone think that other nations have not had similar accusations against some of their elite forces? Of course they have. But do we know much about it? No. And why might that be? Could it be because they handled it in a less public... Handled it, sure, but in a less public way? Probably.
Shouldn't it have been handled by the command structure? I mean, isn't there a serious question as to what went wrong right up to the top of the command, if this were in fact happening? Why weren't they aware of this? And what is wrong with a warrior culture? There seems to be a feeling in the Brereton report that there's something wrong with a warrior culture. I thought that was what all being in the army was all about. I remember when I was conscripted and so faithfully served in the defence of Ingleburn and Singleton, that the first thing you learned in the army was that the purpose of the army is to kill the enemy. That's your role, to kill the enemy. It's not a very nice thing to have to do, but somebody has to do it. And the idea that you would expose yourself and your country to international attack is so ridiculous.
Yes.
And the same thing happened a few years ago in relation to sport. We had two publicity hungry ministers in the Gillard government who decided to release a report on drug taking among athletes, and it went around the world, and all the media around the world suggested that all Australian athletes were drug takers, drug abusers, and it should not have been done that way. You don't do it that way, and you don't damage your own country. And having the Prime Minister say there are brutal truths in this report, just the word truth suggests that the presumption of innocence is no more.
And just to Warwick's point, I would say to anyone,
Thank you, Fay.
Thank you. Good luck getting anybody to serve 3 years now in the military or 7 years, having seen the recent fallout from the Brereton report, and I believe the military are still actively advertising in the media for new recruits. But if you were somebody tossing up whether this was what you wanted to do or not, and you've seen the way that the hierarchy of our leadership has treated the SAS, then you would be disinclined, would you not, to join up?
Yes.
And so this is a legacy issue as well as an immediate one that needs to be addressed.